You're listening to the Unstoppable Teen Podcast, episode number 26. Welcome to Unstoppable Teen, the podcast for teenagers, parents, and teachers. My name is Kevin Mincher. Every week, we will bring you an inspirational person or message to help you experience more success and happiness. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let's get this party started. Hello, Unstoppable Nation, it's Kevin here. Welcome to the show. In this episode, I'm going to answer a question that came in via Facebook this week from Christopher. Not his real name, I've changed it to protect his identity. But he is age 16, that is real. And he wrote in to say, I'm getting bullied and I have low self-esteem. He said the thought of going to school every morning makes it even worse. He asked, how can I overcome this problem? Now, sadly, Chris is not the only teenager that's struggling, worried and concerned about this. Indeed, I was in school this week presenting seminars and teenagers came over and asked me about the same issue. You know, I'm getting bullied here. What can I do to overcome the problem? So, if you are getting bullied right now, or if you know somebody else that is getting bullied right now, you're going to want to listen to this episode and you're going to want to share it with those that are struggling with this issue, because I'm going to share with you a 2-step strategy, very simple, for how to deal with bullying and get yourself back on track. According to research that was done relatively recently, bullying is teenagers' biggest concern right now. Above exam and test stress, above worries at home, peer group pressure, drugs, alcohol, and all the other plethora of issues that teenagers have to deal with, bullying is their number one concern. Whether that's online, whether that's offline in the real world, it's a major problem. So I want to share with you this very simple 2-step strategy as to how to deal with it and get your life turned around, your self-esteem switched back on. So let's crack on. First of all, I've got to say, Christopher, well done for reaching out and asking for help. That is indeed the first step. You see, all too often, when we're getting bullied, we isolate ourselves. We separate ourselves from the people that could actually help us fix the problem. And there are many reasons for that. You know, sometimes the bully intimidates us into not saying anything. You know, if you tell the teachers, if you tell your parents, if you tell the police, then I will cause you even more harm. That's the trick that they play to try and keep you isolated so they can keep the control. But sometimes they don't threaten us in that way, but we just don't feel like we can tell our parents, or we don't feel we can tell our teachers or somebody else. We're worried about maybe impacting on their life or putting them out in some way. I'm going to say to you right now, don't have those concerns. Don't give in to the threats of the bully that says they're going to cause you more pain if you tell. And also, you know, don't worry about interrupting your teacher's life, your parents' life, or even a friend's life by asking them for help. Worst case scenario, reach out to us. That's why we're here. We want to help you. So get in touch with somebody, an adult, whether that's us, a parent, a carer, a teacher, and get some help. Before I go into the major part of the solution here as to how you deal with bullying, I just want to talk about the topic for a little while. You see, it kind of makes sense to campaign against bullying. It would be wonderful if we could live in this perfect world where bullying never happened. The problem is, I don't really think that's realistic. As long as there have been human beings on the planet, there have been bullies on the planet. Let's have a quick look at the definition. Bullying is about when somebody deliberately hurts or intimidates somebody else, whether that is physically, mentally, or emotionally. Let's look at that again. It's about when somebody deliberately hurts or intimidates somebody else, whether that be physically, mentally, or emotionally. Now, if you think about it, the likelihood is that at some point in our lives, we've all been a bully. In other words, there's probably, if you go back far enough, there's probably been a time in our lives where we deliberately hurt or intimidated somebody else. And the chances are that everybody on planet Earth has also been bullied, where we have been on the receiving end of being hurt deliberately or intimidated by somebody else. See, here's the thing, folks. Human beings have got two traits, as if it's programmed in to our central nervous system. It's in our DNA. Those two traits are that we are both hierarchical and we are territorial. What does this mean? Territorial means that we all like to feel that we've got our space in the world. This is my room. This is my bedroom. Get out. Or this is my village. This is my town. This is my school. This is my city. We all have this feeling of being territorial. Indeed, when you walk around a school, there are different groups of students that try to lay claim to different corridors or different sections of the cafeteria or different sections of the sports field. It's like, no, this is where the skateboarders hang out. This is where the year 11s hang out. This is my seat. We are territorial. And we don't like it when other people come onto our territory, when we feel like they're invading our space. Those foreigners that are coming into our town, those people with different coloured skin, with a different religion, that are older than us, that are younger than us, that have got different coloured hair to us. When somebody that's different to us comes onto our territory, it's within our nature to defend that territory. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying that it's programmed in us. And as well as being territorial, we're hierarchical. Lots of species are like this. In other words, whilst we have this ideology of equality, we also have it programmed within us to have hierarchies. There's a top, there's a middle, and there's a bottom. And there are lots of species like this, where there is one male or female in the group that is more powerful than the other males or females in the group. And if you look across society, as human beings, we've created structures that have hierarchies. Whether it's in a school where you have a head teacher, the other teachers, and then the students. Whether it's in a family, and it might be that mum or dad is slightly more powerful than maybe the children. When you look out into companies, where you have a chief executive, where you have managers, and when you then have the rest of the workforce, we have hierarchies, where either by label and name, or just by inference, there are some people that seem to have more power and influence than others. There's a hierarchy. Now, you might be thinking, what's this got to do with bullying? Well, bullying often occurs with young people when there are territorial things or hierarchical things. It's the first time in our lives, for many of us, that we start to try and find our identity in our teenage years. We're trying to figure out what kind of a man or what kind of a woman we are. And some will try and fight to get to the top of the hierarchy. They want to be the chief. They want to be the powerful peer group leader. And they figured that the way to get there is to smash everybody else's windows. Let me explain what I mean. I often joke with the students in my seminars. I say, what's the quickest way to make your house look like the best house on the street? Of course, the quickest way to make your house look like the best house on the street is to go down the street and smash everybody else's windows. Now, everybody else's windows is destroyed, it's demolished, it looks horrible, and because everybody else's house looks horrible, yours now looks better. Of course, this is not a very productive way to go about making your house look like the best house on the street, but you've achieved your aim. The best way, obviously, to make your house look like the best house on the street is to go to work on your house, is to do upgrades, to tidy the garden, to maybe build an extension, to replace the windows, to actually build a better house. But that's not what most people do. When it comes to trying to find their place in their peer group, which is what teenagers are trying to do, they often think that the way to elevate themselves, the way to make themselves look better, is to make other people look worse. That is the mistake of the bully. I can make myself look better by making everybody else look worse. I can create more power for me by diminishing and taking everybody else's power away from them. It's a terrible mistake. You can't make your life better by making everybody else's life worse. All you did was make their life worse, which in turn made your community worse. You disempowered your neighbourhood. The only way that you can make your life better is to make your life better, is to build your skills, to advance your knowledge, to improve your relationships. But the bully has a problem. Ironically, when it comes to bullying, it's usually the bully that has the greatest insecurities. It's usually the bully that has the lowest self-esteem. This has been mentioned in previous episodes of the podcast. It's usually the bully that has the lowest self-esteem and they're trying to bring everybody down to their level. You see, it would make sense for everybody to feel inspired. It would make sense for us all to go out in the world and say, yes, I'm inspired, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic about the future. I'm going to make my life better. I'm going to get the best grades I can. I'm going to put my physical body into the best condition, the best shape it can be. I'm going to get myself ready for a fantastic future. And it would make sense for the rest of the peer group to say, yeah, I want to do that too. I want to be motivated. I want to get better grades. Let's all go on this journey to success and happiness together. The problem is that there are some people who don't believe they can do it. They want to be up there, but somewhere in their heart and in their soul, they just don't think they can complete that journey. Now, here's the thing, here's the problem. Nobody likes to be second best. Nobody wants to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. So the bully, the insecure one, has to try and find a way to get even and to get level with everybody again. And because they don't believe they can get up to the next level, because they don't believe they've got the talent, the strengths, the personality traits, or whatever it is that's required to have a great life, they've got to find a way to smash everybody else's windows and bring them back down to their level. And they'll do that by calling you names. They'll do that by physically beating you. They'll do that by racially abusing you. They'll do that by whatever means they can. It would make sense for them to strive, to improve, but because they don't believe they can, they try to smash your windows and bring you back down to their level. Now, they're not at the bottom of the hierarchy anymore. Now, they're level, or if they can push you further down below them and make your self-esteem worse, make your life worse than theirs, now they've got themselves to the top of the hierarchy, which is where they wanted to be all along. It's really sad. And if you think about it, we see this happening all the time. We see it happening in sports, where one athlete tries to bully another athlete into defeat. Heck, we've even seen it at the very top of international politics. Some people might not like what I'm about to say, but I'm a little bit sad that America appears to have elected a bully. Here's a guy who's gone on camera and deliberately hurt and intimidated people because they have a different nationality, they have a different religion, they're a different sex, they're a girl instead of a boy, they have disabilities. And when nations, and it doesn't matter whether this happened in America, whether it happened in the Gambia, whether it happened in my own country, the United Kingdom, it doesn't matter where it happens, but when we elect people that are bullies, we give permission to our teenagers to behave in exactly the same way. Well, if they can do it and get to the top, maybe that's what I should do to get to the top of my peer group, to get to the top of my community, to get to the top of wherever I want to go. And so we have, around the world, negative role models, whether it be in politics, whether it be in the military, sports, music, who've bullied their way into their positions. And young people observe that and inevitably replicate the behaviour. So this is not about politics, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's just about bullying, the topic of this episode. So getting back onto track, it would make sense to create a world where there were no bullying. And I am a big advocate of anti-bullying campaigns and anti-bullying charities. I just don't think it's a realistic expectation to get and create a world where there is no bullying, for the reasons I've already stated. So since we're unlikely to get to the point where there is no bullying, what we need to do is equip ourselves and each other with the skills to deal with bullying when it happens. It frustrates the heck out of me that teachers in schools and parents in homes don't equip their students and their children with the skills that are required to deal with bullying when it happens. It's as if we're living in this fairy la-la land where we're hoping that everything's going to be perfect, where there's princesses and fairies and rainbows and everything's going to be perfect and okay. Well, that's not how the world is. And therefore, we've got to be proactive in equipping our kids with the mindset, with the strength of emotion and the physical skills that are required to deal with bullying when it happens. So coming full circle back to Christopher. And Christopher, you're not alone. There are literally hundreds of thousands of millions of people on planet Earth right now that are getting bullied. So let's give you 2 simple steps to take to deal with the issue that you're facing and get your life back on track. Step one, Christopher, you've already done it. You've got to report it. You've got to reach out for help in solving the problem. Do not isolate yourself. Go to a teacher, go to a parent, a carer, go to a friend, come to us at Unstoppable Teen, reach out to the police and your legal systems. But whatever you do, step one, get help. In step two, we strengthen ourselves. And we do that in 3 different ways. You've got to strengthen yourself mentally. You've got to strengthen yourself physically, and you've got to strengthen yourself emotionally. Let me explain what I mean. Let's strengthen ourselves mentally. And I want to do this. I want to encourage you to go and read a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Oftentimes people meet me and they see me as a confident person. They hear me on the podcast and they oftentimes assume, here's a guy who can't possibly have had any problems in his life. But I got bullied during my teenage years. You know, I had bad acne. I used to get picked on at school and called silly daft names because of the way my face looked. I then went into my first job in my workplace and I had all kinds of issues and challenges, being isolated within my peer group at work. And then it's happened in other aspects of my life as well. So I know what it's like to be put down, for a bully to try and enforce their physical force or their emotions onto you. The book that helped me turn all these things around was a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Here's a guy, Viktor Frankl, the author of the book, who experienced some of the worst bullying in history. This was a guy who lived through the Holocaust and became a prisoner of war at Auschwitz during World War II. And he, after becoming freed at the end of that horrific experience, he wrote about his experiences of being bullied by the Nazis. I don't want to spoil the book, I don't want to spoil the story, but I want to encourage you. In fact, what we'll do is we'll put a link into today's show notes so that you can go and find the book really easily. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And what he did through his book is he taught me how to become mentally tougher. If you don't want to become a victim of bullying, if you want to prevent it happening, or if you've been bullied and you're being bullied right now and you want to get rid of it, you have to take control of your mind, and this book will give you the means of which to do that. Very quickly, I'll say this. Viktor Frankl says, it doesn't matter what happens to you in life, it's how you respond to it that counts. Sometimes when we get bullied, we go into victim mode. Oh, poor me. Why is this happening to me? How come they always keep focused on me? And the problem is while ever you ask yourself these negative questions, why does it keep happening to me? Oh, poor me. If you ask yourself these kinds of negative questions, if you have this weak mindset, you'll keep creating more of the bad stuff happening. Because whatever you ask your brain will answer. Why does this keep happening to me? Because you're weak. Why do they keep picking on me? Because you're pathetic. Your brain will answer the question. But if, on the other hand, you ask yourself a different question, how can I solve this problem? Your brain will answer that. How can I grow stronger from this? Your brain will answer that. How can I fix this today? Your brain will answer that. Whatever question you ask yourself, your brain will answer. So, you've got to strengthen yourself mentally, and I want to encourage you to read Man's Search for Meaning. If you really want to strengthen your mind even further, then there's another book you've got to read, and that's called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. The reason I picked this book out is because there's a teenage version of the same book. So the adults, parents if you're listening, teachers if you're listening, you can read The Success Principles. If you're a young person listening, you can read The Success Principles for Teens. It was written by Jack Canfield, and he has this brilliant formula called E plus R equals O. In other words, it's the events that happen to you in your life plus your responses to those events that equal your outcomes. E plus R equals O. It's the events that happen to you plus your responses that equal your outcomes. In other words, it's not the event of being bullied that determines your outcomes in life. Almost every human being on planet Earth at some point in time gets bullied. It's how you respond to that event that counts. And you have a choice. You can let the bullying make you weaker inside, or you can rise up, grow stronger, more determined, more ambitious, and more hopeful than ever before. The books combined, Man's Search for Meaning and The Success Principles for Teens, when you read both of those books, they'll equip you with the skills that you need to take yourself forwards and strengthen your mindset. I then said you need to strengthen your body. That's right, folks, because sometimes bullies will try and enforce their physical presence on you. In my opinion, every parent, every school needs to create learning experiences where teenagers can strengthen their physical body. What I'm saying to you teenagers is this: you need to get yourself signed up for a fitness class. You've got to get yourself in physical shape. Oftentimes, when you're physically strong, bullies won't come anywhere near you. You've got to get yourself involved in a martial arts class. I'm not saying you've got to do it forever and get yourself up to black belt, but whether you want to do taekwondo, kung fu, doesn't matter what it is, but train your physical body. If you don't want to get into martial arts and you don't like going to the gym, I'm not saying you have to go to the gym and lift massive weights and become a meathead where your neck is wider than your thighs, right? But what I am saying is, in the very least, you need to go and get yourself into a self-defense class. You need to know that you can either outrun a bully, sidestep a bully, or maneuver your body in a physical space to get yourself out of any situations where you might be attacked physically. And frankly, if you're a parent listening and you haven't put your child through those sorts of classes, then I'm going to say it, you're being neglectful of your responsibilities. You're putting your child out there into the world where they're not trained and they haven't been skilled in a way to deal with the threats that could come and harm them. So please, please, please get yourself involved in some kind of physical fitness, physical training where you can strengthen your body, strengthen your core, so that should the bullies come knocking on your door, you're capable of outrunning them, sidestepping them, and going and getting that help that you need. I said you've got to strengthen your mind. We covered the books. I said you've got to strengthen your body. We've covered physical training. And now you've got to strengthen your emotions. This deserves an entire episode all on its own. In fact, we're going to have multiple episodes over the coming months about how to strengthen your emotions. But I want to pull your attention to two things. Two emotions that are really important when it comes to dealing with bullying. The first emotion is self-esteem. The second emotion is compassion. I know this sounds a bit strange, but if you're being bullied right now, I want you to find it in your hearts to have some compassion for the person that is bullying you. The only reason that they are bullying you is because they have pain in their own life, and they think that the way to solve that pain in their own life is to impart that pain onto you. So rather than being fearful of them, have compassion for them. Bullies bully usually because they're being bullied themselves. They may be suffering some kind of abuse at home, some neglect in their own family. But I'm going to ask you to have some compassion. I'm not asking you to forgive them. I'm not asking you to forget. But I'm asking you to empathize and have some compassion. And in a little way, feel sorry for them that they've somehow come to the conclusion in their life that the way to make their life better is to try and make yours and other people's lives worse. That's a recipe for disaster for the bully's life. Not for your life. You're going to be able to deal with it. But you've got to have some compassion for those people. And then you've got to go to work on your own self-esteem. Now, there are lots of things that you can do to develop your self-esteem. Let me say this to you. Go out there into the world and discover your strengths. You see, what bullies try to do is attack your weaknesses. And if you fall for the 3-card trick, if you fall into the trap of believing those weaknesses, then your self-esteem starts to dip. The fact is, every single human being, including you, has great strengths and talents. We all have at least one or two. You may or may not have discovered them yet. Many of us have 3, 4, and some of us even have 5 strengths. But you've got to go out into the world and you've got to find out and figure out what you're good at. That develops your self-esteem. When you realise that you're good at running, or you're brilliant at mathematics, or you're fantastic at science, or you're awesome at playing a musical instrument, when you discover that you're incredible at looking after animals or growing plants and flowers, when you discover your strengths, then your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-belief, your self-confidence starts to grow. But whenever you isolate yourself in your bedroom, believing that you're no good at anything, your self-esteem dwindles, gets weaker, and is at risk of dying. So you've got to immerse yourself in new experiences where you can discover your strengths. Let's stack all these things together, folks, in a quick summary. First of all, step 1, when you get bullied, report it. Do not isolate yourself. Go and get some help. Step 2, You've then got to strengthen your mind, your body, and your emotions. You've got some books to read. You've got some exercises and some activities to do. Ultimately, you're going to go and discover your strengths. When you do those things, wait for it, over a 3-month period, from the first time you report it to then strengthen your mind, your body, and your emotions for 3 straight months. Don't go to one exercise class and think you've cracked it. Don't read one book and think that's it, problem solved. Don't go to one new hobby or experience to discover your strengths and think, now I've done it. No. Consistent action on a daily basis for 3 months. You can turn your self-esteem around, Christopher, and everybody else that's listening. You can deal with that bullying and you can elevate your life to a whole new level. But you gotta be prepared to play that long game. And if you do that for 3 months, then you'll be back on track. You'll have beaten the bullies and you'll realise what an unstoppable teen you are. Folks, I want to thank you for listening. Of course, this session was about answering Christopher's question. Christopher, I hope you found it useful. Thank you so much for reaching out and asking for the help. Please share this episode with your friends and with your family if they've been bullied in the past, if they're being bullied now, or if you're worried about them getting bullied in the future. Make sure that they get these 2 simple steps, that they understand it's important to report it, and be proactive in strengthening your mind, your body, and your emotions. Share it on social media, share it with your friends. This was episode number 26. You'll get the show notes to this episode, the links to the books that I've mentioned. You'll find those at unstoppableteen.com/26, because it is episode 26. In upcoming episodes, we're going to be answering more of your questions, sharing all kinds of tips and strategies to help you achieve more, and we're going to be interviewing some super successful people to get their insights on what young people, what parents and what teachers can do to help teenagers become unstoppable. We'd really appreciate it if you could go online, subscribe via our website, iTunes and SoundCloud. And if you like what we're doing here and you think it's useful, I'd really appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. Of course, we always have a comment section at the end of each episode. So if you go to unstoppableteen.com/26, if you've got any tips or advice that teenagers could use to deal with bullying, then please add it in the comment section on our website. That would be really appreciated. Send us your questions, let us know how we can help you in future, and of course, as always, we'll be back next week with more hints, with more tips, and with more ideas to help you become unstoppable. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.